Hello, it's Dr. Rhonda Johnson, and today is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. And today I'm going to be discussing natural immunity versus COVID vaccine immunity. Again, talking about this COVID pandemic. But first, I want to just remind everybody, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a virologist, and I'm not an immunologist. I'm not paid by the government or any pharmaceutical company. And my interest in all of this is just like everybody else. I want to survive this pandemic. So before I go into this discussion, I want to review some basic concepts. Viruses. Again, these are non-living things. They require a living host to replicate. Viral replication, folks, is a very complicated process. Viruses undergo 3 different phases of replication: lytic, latent, and persistent. Viral science is complicated. Viruses do and can cause a great deal of human suffering. Immunity. What does that word mean? It's a word that describes how our immune systems protect us from infection. And folks, our immune systems don't just protect us from infection, but they also help protect us from cancer too. There are different types of immunity. One type is called humoral immunity. That's immunity that occurs through the blood and the lymphatics, and cellular immunity. That's conducted by defense-fighting cells, often called killer lymphocytes and other type of immune cells. And again, this is very complicated stuff. And you'll hear a lot of people on the news now talking about studies that address natural immunity versus vaccine-induced immunity with the COVID vaccines. Now, most of these studies are only measuring circulating antibody levels, and that's only part of the story. Now, natural immunity refers to the immunity you get when you recover from an infection. Vaccine-induced immunity refers to the immunity your body has after getting a vaccine. So I'm done with these basic definitions, right? All right, so I think most physicians would agree with me that natural immunity is always better than vaccine-induced immunity. You know, it just goes back to that survival of the fittest and evolution. If you survive anything, COVID or anything, that means your body's natural immune system was strong enough to protect you, and that memory should last for a while. Will it last for a lifetime with COVID? That's the unanswered question. We still don't know because we haven't been in this pandemic long enough to know. We do know that, for example, for measles, if you get measles and you survive measles, you should have lifelong immunity. But there's some challenges with that. First challenge is that not everyone's immune system is equal. Our immune system decreases with age, stress, and disease. And there are things that we can put in our body that decrease our immune system, like harmful chemicals in the environment, tobacco, food additives, alcohol, recreational drugs, and some prescription drugs. There are disease states which alter our immunity, such as cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, inflammatory conditions, obesity, and HIV/AIDS, just to name a few. And folks, we know that there are millions of people who have these conditions. And then there are the babies, our tiny little babies, who for their early months of life totally depend on the immunity they get from their mothers through the placenta, through antibodies from the mother that pass through the placenta, or from their mom's breast milk. Now, one more thing with immunity that's long-lasting. It depends on the virus, folks. These viruses, although they're simple and they're parasitic, they have some unique properties, and one can be latency. Latency means the ability of a virus to go to sleep inside your cell. And that's kind of lay terms, of course. But viruses can go to sleep. They don't cause any noticeable symptoms. They can last a lifetime. Sometimes they never become active, and sometimes they do. And again, they co-live with us. And there are a lot of viruses that you know about that are latent virus. You know, the virus that causes the cold sore, the herpes simplex virus, the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles, the varicella zoster virus, that virus that causes infectious mono, Epstein-Barr virus, and that virus that causes HIV, to name a few. human and immunodeficiency virus. Those viruses can be latent. And stress can cause some of these sleeping viruses to reactivate, as well as disease and aging. Now, scientists don't think that the SARS-CoV-2 virus causes latency, but they think it can cause what's called persistent infection, a state in which a low level of virus is chronically produced over a period of time. And they're investigating whether this is what's going on with people who have long COVID, and they're starting to see some of this in people who have immunocompromised medical conditions. More research is being done, and we'll have answers. Now back to natural immunity, to vaccine immunity. A study that's been getting a lot of attention is this Israeli study that showed that natural immunity was about 13 times stronger than having 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine, and people who recovered from COVID, who had natural immunity, if they got 1 booster shot of the Pfizer COVID vaccine, it greatly boosted their protection against this Delta variant. Now, again, this was an Israeli study. It looked at thousands of medical records, but it was released without peer review. And what does peer review mean? It means that independent researchers review the data, study the study designs, look at how they analyze the results and their conclusions. And I can tell you from having been published in peer review publications, this process can take about a year at least to work through. And it's very grueling and it's very rigorous. Now, the CDC released its own peer review study on August 6th. They looked at COVID infections in Kentucky among people who were previously infected with COVID. So they looked at reinfections, and they found that unvaccinated people are more than twice likely to be reinfected with COVID than those who were fully vaccinated. So for these unvaccinated people in Kentucky, their natural immunity didn't hold up too well. They got reinfected. So the CDC concluded that COVID-19 vaccines offer better protection than natural immunity alone, and that getting vaccinated, even if you've been infected, helps prevent reinfection. So again, and I'll say the CDC study was published in the MMR journal, which is a highly credible scientific journal. Now, a lot of people appear willing to want to try natural infection. These are the folks that, refuse to get vaccinated for various reasons. I keep saying I've heard these doctors and these scientific experts say that the Delta variant is so contagious that it's almost guaranteed that all of us are going to get Delta, even if we've been vaccinated or if we've been unvaccinated. And certainly we know a lot of communities in the United States show a high level of transmission. So surely, folks, this is a gamble. And right now, nobody knows who's going to live or die from COVID infection. We do know 40 million people almost have tested positive for COVID here in the United States. The actual number of those believed to be anywhere between 100 to 120 million people, because not everybody can get tested. If you've tried to get an appointment for a COVID test lately, likely it's going to be very difficult to get a COVID test. Now, deaths are only around 657,000. That not only, but my whole point is the vast majority of people do recover from COVID, but no one ever thinks they're going to be in the unlucky group that die. And no one ever plans to be in the group that gets long COVID. And no one plans to be a child that ends up with MIS-C and goes on to have heart disease and kidney disease or life-threatening inflammatory conditions. And nobody knows who's going to have a reaction to the COVID vaccine. Even if the number is small, if you've had a reaction, it's not good. So again, this is where we are. More questions than answers. But the good news is, for those who want to be vaccinated, there's a preponderance of data that shows the vaccines are safe and effective against preventing severe death, illness, and they offer protection against the Delta variants. And folks, that's the only reason why I talk about this, because I'm trying to survive this pandemic, and I hope you will too. That's my message today. This is Dr. Rhonda Johnson. As always, my views are my own. Stay safe. Have a blessed day.